Steve. This week, we're throwing it back retro styles, jumping into the last arcade machine on planet Earth.
The shop owner Gilly has created a game to save the arcade. But an evil corporation has infected it with a virus.
My machine! Not only are they corrupting our...
So, Steve, this week we're checking out Arcadegeddon from IllFonics. This is a third-person shooter that is, has an interesting premise, but something we've definitely seen before. We are jumping into the world of the arcades. I mean, this is a retro throwback. Some people probably don't even know what arcades are anymore. But you and me definitely have played some arcade games in the past. And this one, we're being tasked with actually jumping in and trying to stop the mega corporation FunFunCo from taking over and destroying the last arcade machine in the city. And this is being put together by our friend Gilly. He's made this machine, but unfortunately, FunFunCo has put a bunch of viruses into this machine, and we are tasked to jump into this machine and get rid of these viruses and try to, save the arcade. And, this is a storyline we've seen before, the little guys going after the big corporation. I mean, there's nothing new here, but it is kind of presented in a very unique way. I thought the art style here was pretty cool. It's very colorful. There's a lot to see here. The animations were done well, very smooth. Jumping into it, I did enjoy kind of my first, initial reaction to what the game was presenting me. I like this retro stuff, so I kind of got into it right away. We're going to get into how the game played, but what were some of your first impressions of Arcadegeddon, Steve?
I was looking forward to this game as well, and I will say it's not really easy for me to say Arcadegeddon. Too easy. So it doesn't kind of roll off the tongue. So it's not saying, what game have you played in? Okay. But to start off, it did get my interest. It's a kind of game, I like the idea of the kind of slight, there's not much of a story, but it's the slight story that it was presented to you at the beginning, with meeting your Uncle Gilly. I kind of liked it. There's not much of a cutscene. It's just kind of like still pictures, voice over text. Like you said, very colourful. And then he miniaturises you and puts you in his machine to try and destroy the glitches from FunFunCo.
Yeah.
And the first thing I thought of, very colourful. It kind of reminds me of Fortnite, the art style.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, very similar for sure.
Very, very similar on that. And obviously when you shoot as well, like you get splatters as well. And that kind of reminds me of the Splatoon. So it's almost like a cross of these two together. If they had a baby, this was the game that come out.
Yeah.
And so starting off with that, and it is a run game. There's about 35 levels. I believe there's 4 bosses. And it's basically try and stay alive and collect as many weapons and just shoot everything in sight.
Yeah.
We'll talk about the game mechanics first. I thought it was very good. I thought it was very smooth. I didn't have any issues with the moving. The shooting wasn't a problem at all. You obviously, like you said, you can double jump, you can slide, you got your shooting, and you got your evasive action if you need to, which does come in very handy. But to be honest with you, as far as the game to keep me interested, after a couple of hours, like you said, I was getting very bored as I found it very repetitive.
Yeah, this one does. I mean, that's the basis of this style of game, right? Like you said, we're doing these runs, right? So every time we jump into this game, this run's going to be unique. These levels are procedurally generated. We are going to be put into 4 different kind of worlds as we kind of battle through towards these boss levels, which are very difficult when you're playing by yourself. Yeah. We should kind of preface with saying that we did play the early launch version of the game, so we didn't actually get to use any of the online co-op capabilities that are available for this game. Now it has been launched, so we can't really touch on that too much. But overall, this game is a game that you want to be able to play with other people, because the difficulty level as you get through each stage starts to really ramp up, and you notice it, especially when you're playing by yourself and when you're in one of these games where you have limited continue tokens to be able to go on if you do happen to die. You really have to start to kind of pick and choose which weapons you want to pick up and use as you go through these runs, and all these different upgrades you can collect as you go through. And that is actually one of the more unique parts of this game that I did like, is that there is a ton of loot to pick up in this world. Plenty. There's all different kinds of weapons, a la Ratchet and Clank style. Like, I had weapons that were throwing saw blades, and then you got your regular, assault rifles and shotguns and all that good stuff. So I really like the variety of weapons you got to choose. Like you said, the controls were actually really smooth and snappy. happy. So the shooting felt really good. It's just we're running into the same types of enemies, level in, level out. They are getting more difficult to deal with as you go through these levels, but you're just not getting kind of that variety that maybe you would hope to see in a game like this, where you are going to be kind of playing it through the same levels over and over, maybe with increased difficulty down the road if that's how you want to attack this game. It's just like you said, it's a little repetitive. There's nothing unique about this game or the story or the premise here. It's not a bad game by any stretch, but it's just a game that is just kind of lacking a little bit. It feels like there just isn't enough game here to want to really hold you for a long period of time.
For one final spot I'll just sort of mention, that kind of put me off a little bit, and this was actually in the game, is when you're going through like the tutorial bit with your Uncle Gilly telling you, and he's going through the different stuff of like, this is your health, this is this. He mentions on it, this is your currency, and he actually says you can actually go to the Microsoft store to buy some currency so you can upgrade your cosmetics.
Yeah.
And I thought that kind of put me off, especially with all these games with microtransactions. And I've never seen in a game of a character of saying, hey, you can go to the Microsoft store and buy, with your hard money, buy some cosmetics so you can upgrade or change Plug's appearance.
Yeah.
I did also notice as well. Yeah, and I did also notice as well, because you do have a central hub that you initially start off with. And there is other gangs there that I can believe that, depending how good you get, you can actually join them. But I will say, unfortunately, I never got that far because I could get past the boss. It just, and then you start all back over again.
Oh, yeah, I know, Steve. This one was difficult. You know what? We didn't have a terrible time playing this one. We definitely had a good time jumping in. If you've got to score Arcadegeddon out of 10, Steve, what are you going to give it?
I did like it, but there's just not enough there for me. And I think with so many shooter games out there already that I feel has that little bit more content, I'm going to give this one a 6 out of 10.
You know what? I'm right there with you, man, because I feel the same way. I feel like this game is well made. The controls, the music, the graphics, everything was well done here, but it's just nothing new. Unfortunately, we don't have anything that really stands out in this particular title. So I'm right there with you with a 6 as well.
What do you think of the place? Not bad for only 36 years of blood, sweat, and art.
Third-person shooter that offers plenty of weapon variety and customization. Unfortunately, the difficulty level and lack of enemy variety make this one feel fairly repetitive.